The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "If your brother does something wrong, go and have it out with him alone, between your two selves. If he listens to you, you have won back your brother. If he does not listen, take one or two others along with you. The evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses is required to sustain any charge. But if he refuses to listen to these, report it to the community. And if he refuses to listen to the community, treat him like a pagan or a tax collector. I tell you solemnly, whatever you bind on earth shall be considered bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be considered loosed in heaven. I tell you solemnly once again, if 2 of you on earth agree to ask anything at all, it will be granted to you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 meet in my name, I shall be there with them." The Gospel of the Lord. Last week, I was rather unwell, and it still remains a little bit, but because of my sickness last week, I didn't preach on what I was considering preaching on, which is fatherhood. Last week, obviously, was Father's Day. A few years ago, I remember preaching on true motherhood and true womanhood, and denouncing the false feminism on Mother's Day. And I wanted to give some light on what masculinity is and what fatherhood is on Father's Day, but it's been delayed a week. So I thought I might unfold that a bit today, because we are indeed in a time where manhood, masculinity, fatherhood is in a state of crisis for a number of reasons. And there's a danger that either in that difficulty and misunderstanding, in that vacuum, as it were, there flows in certain bad images of fatherhood to replace what should be there in a Christian understanding. The kinds of images that might flow in wrongly would be, 1, what the leftist world wants to make of fatherhood today, which is a kind of criminal that is tolerated, a product of the patriarchy of ancient times. Men must be reminded that they've got a toxicity in them that must be restrained, and we will do the restraining for you. You're to be a kind of useful idiot for us. It's very much the way the leftist world today considers men, manhood, masculinity, and fatherhood. The way that fathers and men are often ridiculed gives certainly credence to that statement. But in the face of that wrong think and the kind of vacuum we have, there's also a danger of another kind of caricature on manhood flowing in to replace those things. And that would be the kind of false prophets that are arising today, that have certain truths on masculinity to say, but often mix it in with lots of other extreme wrong ideas. And there are indeed those that are putting forward an idea of masculinity that's very strong, very virile, but is tainted with certain extreme ideas. I'm thinking of someone like Andrew Tate is a good example of that. And if you're into him or tempted to follow him, get rid of him from your model status. He's a false prophet today. What is then for us as Catholics and Christians the real approach to manhood, masculinity? Certainly we can say, in reply to the silliness that's going on in the transgender movement, we can affirm that a man certainly has a biological component to his makeup, just like a woman. The woman has the XX chromosome and we have the XY chromosome. There's a biological structure to what it is to being a man that is set by our genetics. And we must affirm that in the face of the absurd claims today that the genetic structure has no influence on whether one chooses whether they're a man, a woman, or some other kind of construction, and they give the name gender to that, a misconstrual of that word, and we're going to have a look at that word. But that's not enough to just say that a man has XY chromosomes, and that is what a man is. There's much more to being a man than just that. Much more to manhood, masculinity, especially fatherhood. We have to, I think, take our cues, as we would normally do as Catholics, from the Scriptures. We're attentive to natural experience, the natural moral law, of course, philosophy. But we must obviously receive light on this from heaven, and there we must go to the book of Genesis. And we'll see, in fact, I think, 5 criteria of what makes a man a man. One is, yes, by nature, this XY chromosome. We're given a distinctive body. The way that our human nature is incarnated as men is clearly different to a woman. And there to deny that really is an insanity of our time. And one wonders whether it's even worth having the debate when someone refuses to accept obvious scientific truths like that. But nonetheless, that's number one, our nature, and the incarnation of our nature as masculine XY chromosome. Another key component of being a man is the capacity for work, till the garden, as God has given us the command to do, which applies especially to men. We're going to go through these. Number 2, a capacity for the truth. Searching for the truth. Number 3, the development of the virtues, which are so critical for being a good man. Not just a man as a man, but someone who knows where they're headed and for what they live. And the developments of the virtue is in order that we can give ourselves away in love to a woman, to enter into husbandry. And without the virtues and the proper development of a character, the gift of oneself in marriage becomes almost impossible. And then within marriage, the capacity for generating another, having children, in one's own image and likeness, according to one's nature, which is what the word gender means. If we want to know what gender one is, ask oneself, what capacity do I have for generating another? I have a capacity as a man to inseminate a woman, and a woman has a capacity in her body to be a gestator, to receive that and be fruitful in carrying a child. That's our gender, if you want to put it that way. It's the root of the word, to be able to generate. But what is certainly true, to be a man today is not enough to just have a man's body. We must learn to work. We must learn to put our capacity, spiritual and physical, at the service of a certain efficiency in the material world and the temporal world, whether intellectual work or whether more physical work. And the boy or the man who refuses to properly grow up and learn a trade or develop a certain career and skills at the service of that career will remain perpetually a boy. A kind of Peter Pan syndrome, which will go very far, as we'll see. But first of all, to be a man means to receive by nature from who one is in one's incarnate reality, but also as a call from God. Till the garden, have dominion, use the material world for the building up of a proper human life. That is the divine call and the dignity of work in human life. And the man or the woman, but especially man, who refuses to work, let him not eat, is what St. Paul says. He will remain forever a child if he refuses to enter the world, face the world, and develop certain capacities to be efficient in the face of the material world. So important, my brothers and sisters, because today we're in a culture that is so mixed up in all sorts of ways that it's creating a generation of young people who think that life is only about recreation. Life is only for fun. They want to spend their lives playing video games or doing everything except putting their life at the service of a proper work and efficiency in the world. And there we must affirm, in a Christian but also natural law sense, it is of the dignity of man to work, in a healthy way, of course, a dignified work, a legitimate work, a work that is properly regulated so it doesn't become a god, but nonetheless, yes, what defines a man at the first level, the first stage, is that he is someone who's capable of facing the world, dominating it to some degree, and gathering a certain well-being and welfare for his family if he's married. And the man who refuses to work is not a real man. Now, of course, there can be men who have disabilities, and they can be varied. Of course, we're not talking about those that are incapacitated through no fault of their own. God can give them other ways forward, and the Christian religion offers incredible ways forward when there are deficiencies in one's body or intellectual inabilities, etc. But even the habit that's developed in work, including in sports, is not virtuous. It is simply what we call the predisposition to virtue. The regulation of one's body so that one can get up at 5 a.m. and go off to be a builder or an electrician, or get up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym in a regular way and push oneself through the discomfort and the pain barrier and the boredom or whatever it is that one's going through, the bad mood. They are not necessarily virtues that make oneself a truly good man. And that's proven by the fact that there can be ample sports people out there who are brilliant in their sport, top of their game, and be the most immoral people possible, sleeping with everybody under the sun and abusing everyone around them. Just having a certain efficiency in one's body, whether in the gym, in sport, or in the workplace, is no guarantee that we are a good man. But nonetheless, it is the predisposition to learn to govern one's body at a fundamental level like that is the right ground in which, the right soil in which virtues can be sown. And there, my brothers and sisters, in accord with searching for the truth, which is another dimension of being a real man, it is what is most properly human in us, a spiritual power in us. We must develop our intelligence at the service of the truth. To be real men, it applies to women also, but it is definitely a component of being a man who's not interested in the truth, of developing his intelligence at some level. I'm not talking about going to university and getting PhDs. I'm talking about just wanting to develop this capacity within us and go further and further of understanding what it is to be human, where we've come from, what it is to live a righteous life, an ethical life, a moral life, what it is to be a man, a good husband, a good father. How do I live a religious life? What it is to be a good Christian. This should also, always I should say, be part of our search for going further in the truth as a man. And then, of course, the development of a proper character. Because without the development of a qualitative character as a man, we will not be able to love properly and give ourselves away to a woman in marriage and be stable in that gift. We will remain immature, we will remain underdeveloped, and we will tend to be a very up and down, unstable husband and father. The development of certain manly virtues is critical to be a real man. And you think about it, St. Joseph is a good example of what are the kinds of virtues that a man should have. A certain strength of character, a certain clear vision of where he's going, a certain constancy in who he is, a stability, an emotional stability, able to serve those around him, including his wife and children, a certain bravery, a certain respect for others, a decency in his heart, a goodness, a certain self-discipline, a certain temperance and chastity, modesty, the way that he interacts with others, a certain virility, a settledness in who he is as a man. All of these things are important so that a man can be a man, and most important of all, be a man in relation to a woman. And this is shown again by the book of Genesis, that Adam only truly becomes Adam when he wakes up and he sees the woman in front of him, Eve, at last, bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. Here is one to whom I am called to give myself away to, and I will find who I am in the gift of myself to her. So a man is only a man properly finalized insofar as he gives himself away to a woman in marriage. Now, once again, there will be people who may not be able to get married for whatever reason. Does that mean that they can't achieve a certain manhood and masculinity? God makes up for the lack in the Christian way, in a Christian vocation, by supernatural grace. That's a good news. And then my apologies. A man really only becomes a man in generating another and having children in the context of marriage and family. To be the gender of a man truly is in generating another of the same nature. And that's shown in the Garden of Eden again. Be fruitful and multiply. And there, my brothers and sisters, all of those dimensions, including one final one, are necessary. That a man is only a man insofar as he recognizes the truth that he's been made a man by his Creator and his Redeemer. That a man is only truly a man when he prays and recognizes his position under God and his dependency upon another in the order of being and life and salvation. So a man by his nature, his XY chromosome, a man by the capacity for work and the living of that dimension, a man by his capacity for searching for the truth, a man by his development of the virtues, a man by his relation to woman in marriage, a man by generating offspring, and a man recognizing that he's a creature under God and must pray and rely on his Creator and Redeemer. There, my brothers and sisters, that's the essence of manhood that we should be very clear on today in our current culture. Because with the promotion of a radical feminism and even a midstream feminism today, it's done so much damage. The devil, as you've heard me say in the past, has been very clever to undermine femininity and womanhood, to get women to despise the natural call to motherhood, has undermined in a very clear way the status of men in their capacity as men and fathers. And that was deliberate by the devil because he knew that if he can take woman away from their vocation, by nature and implication, he will take man away from their vocation, and ultimately he will eclipse the fatherhood of God on us and produce whole millions of spiritual orphans cut from God, thinking that God is a delusion, and then at war with one another. Men hating women and women hating men, and the breakdown of our society that we are seeing today, sadly. So there, no matter where we come from and how we recognize ourselves in those things, let us be clear in our own understanding of what God calls us to as men. For us to be faithful in marriage, we must have certain virtues. And unfortunately today there's a kind of epidemic around the world, not only of families that have no fathers, so homes that have no father present physically there, but homes where the father is absent in a psychological and spiritual way, maybe physically present, but on about himself. So selfish he can't lay down his life for his wife and children, so caught up with his own projects or obsessed by his work and having the wrong order in those things. And there's a call and a reminder and a invitation from the Holy Spirit today that men must be willing to lay down their lives for their families and sacrifice who they are. That's where they find their deepest dignity and their deepest identity. There, my brothers and sisters, hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on the problems today. Let us ask the Lord to help us be clear on it for our own lives. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.